Yeah, so I think it's a pretty surefire pick at number one here for the Bengals. They obviously need a franchise QB. They need someone to rejuvenate their franchise and sell tickets, get them back in the playoffs. And I think the obvious pick here is the Ohio boy, LSU, Joe Burrow. It's the first overall pick. There's probably one weakness you can say is that he doesn't have the strongest arm in the draft, but otherwise he is A-, A, B+ at every trait you would want your franchise quarterback to have, and I think the Bengals should take him without any hesitation.
All right, so Washington, they have a decent amount of holes on the roster, but I think best prospect in the entire draft, Chase Young. Unless in the very unlikely circumstance that they trade down, the pick is going to be Chase Young, one of the best edge rush pass rushers since, that I can remember from the past, 5 or 6 years that I've been, closely following the draft, better than Joey Bosa, better than Nick Bosa, set the sack record at Ohio State last year. And, yeah, he's definitely going to be the number 2 pick here for the Washington Redskins.
Lions really have a toss-up here. Some people have said they're going to go Tua or a quarterback. They've said they're going to go cornerback and Jeff Okudah, an edge rusher and Isaiah Simmons. But I am going to pick a defensive tackle named Derek Brown from Auburn. He really led Auburn almost led Auburn in tackles with 55, and he had 4 sacks. And I like this pick because what they did in free agency. They got rid of Darius Slay, so they had to replace him. They went up and got a veteran cornerback in Desmond Trufant from the Atlanta Falcons. He's not the best corner to replace Darius Slay, a Pro Bowl corner, but he does the job. At linebacker, you could see them going Isaiah Simmons possibly, but they also went out and got Jamie Collins, so that's a good fit. He's a good veteran leader. Matt Patricia knows him from New England. So I think you got to look at the biggest need right now for the Detroit Lions, and that is stopping the run game and getting sacks. Last year, they were 21st. They have the 21st run D. They let go about 115 yards a game. And then when you look at their sack numbers, they were 30th. They couldn't get to the quarterback. So I think Derek Brown comes in and instantly stuffs up the line.
All right. So I think personally here that the Giants are definitely in need of an offensive tackle. And kind of what's been trending is that they've actually spent some significant time with Tristan Wirfs from University of Iowa for offensive tackle.
So here I think the position is pretty obvious. They're either going to go Tua or Herbert. I personally think they should go Tua, but as the GM of the Dolphins, I'm going to say that they're going to select Justin Herbert with this pick of the draft. He is the biggest, strongest arm, smartest quarterback in the draft. He played at Oregon for 4 years, saw plenty of starts, plenty of experience, and I think he'll be a good fit here. I would think that Dolphin fans might be a little upset at this pick because they would want the Dolphins to take the obvious, more popular Tua Tagovailoa. But I think going with the strong-armed, healthier, smarter, taller Justin Herbert is the move for the Dolphins at 5.
So with the Dolphins taking Herbert, that makes the Chargers, I think, very, very happy that Tua has fallen to them. I honestly think this is going to be kind of a tough pick for them just because Simmons is basically Derwin James in a linebacker's body. That would just make their defense probably the best in the NFL, in my opinion. But, yeah, I think the pick for the Chargers is going to be Tua. Strong arm, good reads on defenses. One of the indicators, I think, of why the Chargers are going to make a push for Tua, whether or not they get him at 6 or trade up for him, is that we signed Ryan Bulaga, who's the right tackle. And since Tua is a lefty, that would make Bulaga, protecting Tua's blind spot, making that the premier tackle spot for us. So I think Tua has all the intangibles that you look for in a franchise quarterback. And I think that if he can stay healthy, which is a big if with Tua just because of, ankle issues and hip issues. But I think, especially on the Chargers, I think Tua would just be amazing.
So I think you look at your most important position gone, and that was really Luke Kuechly at inside linebacker. And you need to replace him somehow, and that's with Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons is a guy, probably the guy in the draft that can mostly do it all on defense. He can cover, he can rush the passer, he can stop the run. And if he's left at 7, I think you take him. In college, he went for 104 tackles and 7 sacks. It just goes to what the Panthers did last year in needing someone like that. For the last 10 years, they've been top 10 in rushing defense. They weren't last year. Isaiah Simmons comes in and fills that void.
All right, so I think the Cardinals will be taking Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle from the University of Alabama. I think this is a good fit here because he's athletic, so he'll be able to move around when Kyler Murray at quarterback inevitably navigates around a lot. And also I think he can help Kyler kind of develop as a pocket passer because he won't need to scramble around as much. So I think Cardinals will take Jedrick Wills.
How this draft has played out so far, I could see the Jaguars going in multiple directions, most notably taking Jeff Okudah, who surprisingly has fallen this far. That being said, I am going to have the Jaguars taking receiver Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. I think they are in desperate need of offensive playmakers. They really don't have anyone on the outside worth noting that will change them and make them a winner or make them more explosive. I think Jerry Jeudy provides exactly that. Gardner Minshew will have a young receiver to learn and build with and grow with as the Jaguars try to improve their base. And I think Jeudy is a phenomenal talent, played at the highest level in college football. He's the best route runner. He's fast. He's fantastic in the open field. And I think as long as he works on his drops and doesn't drop the ball, I think this is a perfectly fine fit for them, despite not taking Okudah.
While they did sign Conklin in free agency, they still have a gaping hole at the other tackle position. So I believe they're going to take Andrew Thomas. I've seen a lot of people mocking Thomas to the Browns, and I couldn't agree more. I think Thomas is the safest tackle in this draft. Back in pre-draft, months and months ago, Thomas was considered the top tackle in the draft, and then he's just been slowly slipping. I think it's just one of those instances where the media and people just kind of pick at the top guy and just pick at all of the things wrong with them, even though they really just kind of grasping at straws. So I think the Browns are going to steal with Thomas at 10.
A huge need of theirs is corner, and Jeff Okudah, who projectively is supposed to go 3 or 4 or 5 or something early, he is still on the board, and the Falcons find that need and think it's worth it to move up 5 spots to 11, and they get Jeff Okudah. One of the reasons is Desmond Trufant is out. He's struggled the last few years with the team, so the Atlanta Falcons sent him out. And the other reason is he is a huge steal. Jeff Okudah, again, isn't supposed to go this far. Jeff Okudah would join Damontae Kazee, SDSU alumni. Kazee's had a nice career with Atlanta so far. I think he was tied for most in picks this year, or he was second. So Jeff Okudah goes and fills a need at defense. When they went out and had a huge free agency getting Todd Gurley and Hayden Hurst, they finally do something to add to Devontae Fowler with Jeff Okudah.
The Raiders obviously have most notably need that receiver and cornerback, and with Okudah falling almost to them, they're forced to take a receiver here. With Jeudy off the board, they're going to take CeeDee Lamb here at 12, who I would be enthralled with if they ended up with CeeDee. He is arguably the best receiver in the draft. He's big, he's strong, he has one of the best yards after catch averages in college last year. He has better hands than Okuda. One of the best catch radiuses in the draft. The only weakness one could say that he might have is that he played in the Big 12, which means he didn't see a lot of press man coverage, which obviously is very prevalent in the NFL. But he's strong, so I would assume that he'll be fine with that. Point is, CeeDee Lamb is a once in a life, or not, he's cut that out, but CeeDee Lamb is a great prospect, a great receiver to build the Raiders receiving class with.
So, with the way the board fell, I've been seeing a lot about the Niners and how there have been talks about them taking an offensive tackle when inevitably Joe Staley retires. I'm personally not that high on Mekhi Becton. I think he has I think he does have the highest ceiling out of any of the tackles in this class. Just his floor also being the lowest of at least like the top 4 tackles kind of concerns me. So I think that the 49ers are going to continue to bolster their defensive line, especially since they just traded DeForest Buckner. I think they're going to take Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina.
Looking at the Buccaneers roster, it's hard to find a weakness, but the only one they do have is the pass defense. They went out in free agency, got a franchise quarterback in Tom Brady. They have receivers, one of the best tandems in the NFL, probably the best tandem in the NFL, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Ronald Jones is stepping up at the running back. I think he'll be their premier guy. So on offense, they're pretty solid. On defense, they have the number 1 rush D, but the passing D needs help. And since Okuda is gone, I think you go to the next best corner, and that is C.J. Henderson. He's from Florida. He's going to help a 30th ranked pass defense. It's something they need. And if you bring a guy in like this and he steps up right away, I think this team is playoff bound.
I think the Broncos are going to take Henry Ruggs from Alabama, the receiver. I think this is a good fit for them after Sanders left mid-season last year. So I think the best pick for them is to take the receiver from Alabama.
Just add on to that, I think, Henry Ruggs is a perfect fit for Denver. I think Elway really, really likes Ruggs. I wouldn't be surprised to see them trade up. Maybe not necessarily for Ruggs, but I think if Ruggs fall into the lap, Elway would be perfectly fine with it. He has immense speed, fastest receiver in the draft class. So they have somebody that can, burn corners and burn safeties, kind of be like similar to like Tyreek Hill. Not as fast, but just somebody that can burn anybody deep.
Yeah, so here I think this would be I think we did a good job on this trade because I think the Jets might take Mekhi Becton at 11 if they don't trade back. So trading back to 16 with Mekhi Becton still being on the board, I think the Jets would happily take him. He is a mountain of a human being. He's by far the biggest tackle in the draft. He's very, very athletic despite his 6'7", 370 frame. He's fit, he's fast, he's strong, and I think he would provide Sam Darnold with the tackle that he needs going forward because they didn't have one last year. And despite his low floor, as Devin previously stated, I think the high ceiling is too much to pass up, and the Jets would happily take Becton here.
I've been seeing the word on the street for Dallas is that they really like 2 players, Kilavon Chaisson, I don't know how to say his name, I'm sorry, and AJ Terrell. Kilavon's a edge rusher out of LSU, and Terrell is a cornerback out of Clemson, I believe. And so I think they're going to go personally Kilavon. They need edge rushers. They need pressure to get to the quarterback. They were kind of lacking that last year. I think that it's going to be a great fit for Dallas.
you look what they have to do. I think it's all offense when they're going into this draft. They have 3 different picks. We talked about their first one with Justin Herbert. And if you got a rookie quarterback in there, you have to protect him and draft another lineman. I think you go Josh Jones from Houston. I think he's a perfect fit. Jordan Howard comes in, and I think this team turns into a run-first team, especially with Justin Herbert coming in. You don't want to give a rookie quarterback a lot of pass attempts. So good alignment. Maybe he turns into Mike Pouncey from what we saw earlier with the Miami Dolphins. But, yeah, on defense with free agency, they went Byron Jones, they went Shaq Lawson, they went Kyle Van Noy. I think you double up in the draft and you go Herbert, and then at 18, you go Josh Jones to protect him.
I think the Raiders are going to be taking Christian Fulton out of LSU, the cornerback. I think that the Raiders need help in the secondary, and that's something that they can definitely get from Fulton. Probably the 3rd-ranked cornerback in this draft, and he'll be a great addition to the Raiders.
Yeah, so here is the 2nd Jaguars pick, who Jaguars fans probably won't be happy that they passed up on Okudah because they still need to fill the void that Jalen Ramsey left when they traded him. But there's still a bunch of good cornerbacks on the board here, and I think with the 20th pick, they would pick Jalen Johnson out of Utah. He's one of the longest, lankiest cornerbacks, which is a positive trait to have. He played in the Pac-12, so he played against a lot of good receivers. And despite his lack of quickness or elite quickness, I think his coverage skills are good enough to make up for it. And the Jaguars fans would be happy to take Johnson here and have Judy as well.
They have a glaring need at receiver, especially since Nelson Aguilar left them in free agency. So I think the pick is going to be Justin Jefferson. I think this is one of the biggest deals of the first round so far. Jefferson could easily go before Ruggs. He could even go before CD or Judy if the team is crazy enough. He's that good. Excuse me. He checks all the boxes off. He has great production at LSU. He's 6'1", around 200 pounds. He's quick. I think he put up like a 4.4-ish 40 time at the combine. So the Eagles are getting a great receiver in Justin Jefferson, and I think he's going to help Carson Wentz, actually realize his potential, because I feel like Carson Wentz is still a quarterback that could see some improvement, like just as like a player with adding weapons around him. So yeah, I think the pick is definitely going to be Jefferson.
I'm going to go cornerback for the Vikings. I think the other position they could go for in the draft is wide receiver. But since a lot of receivers have already went, I think they stick with corner, especially after losing Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, and Mackenzie Alexander. At one point last season, all these guys were starting. Xavier Rhodes was a former Pro Bowler. He's gone. Trey Waynes was a first-round pick. He's gone. Mackenzie Alexander was solid. So I think you desperately need a fill that position because you don't have anyone right now to fill that. And you go A.J. Terrell from Clemson. They did all right last year. They were the 14th ranked pass defense. But with no one right now, I think you drop to the 20 or 30 range. So I think you need to go A.J. Terrell, and he's the best corner in position at the draft right now.
I think the Patriots are going to take A.J. Espenza, the defensive end from Iowa. I think this is a good fit for the Patriots because he's powerful, he's versatile, and that's something that Bill Belichick loves is the versatility. I think the only thing that could cause concern here was his performance at the Combine, but he did have a strong season, so that's something that can pull for him here, and I think the Patriots will be a good fit for him.
So the Saints, being the perennial playoff team that they are, don't have a lot of glaring needs. One is definitely cornerback, which I think is a very likely pick for them here. But someone needs to take Jordan Love, and I think the Saints will do it, taking their quarterback of the future here at 23. I think, or 24, excuse me. I think they won't miss out too much not taking a cornerback here because the talent is starting to drop off a little bit. So you never know what you're going to get. I think Jordan Love has the potential to be a franchise quarterback, and Drew Brees is 41, 42 years old coming next season, so he could fall off a cliff at any time. And I think they need that backup franchise option because I don't really think they believe Taysom Hill is that guy, despite what they've been saying. And I think Jordan Love learning from Drew Brees for a couple years will do wonders for him and his development. And I think he could potentially be the franchise quarterback.
I have them taking Austin Jackson, offensive tackle out of USC. I can't remember the last time where offensive line wasn't an issue for the Vikings. So I think they get somebody who has been seeing some late rising here. He was considered around a second-round pick earlier this month, but he's been rising as of late. So I think that the Vikings are going to get a great guy, great character. I think one of the biggest knocks on him was that he donated like bone marrow, I think, to his sister, and that was the reason why he couldn't play for a good chunk of the season. And I think he came back too early and wasn't as strong as he should have been. So I think that impacted his play severely. So I think that's kind of why you don't really see him being drafted as much higher. But I believe that the Vikings are going to do wonders with Austin Jackson. I think he's going to have a great career in Minnesota.
I see the Chiefs moving up because they have an offer out there with Yetur Gross-Matos, if I said that right, from Penn State. This guy, in my opinion, should have been taken off earlier on the board. He's very skilled. I mean, in his last 2 years in college, he had 15 sacks, 8 his second to last year, and 7 his last year. So, I mean, when you look at this Chiefs defense, they're more of a coverage defense, and they let Tyrann Mathieu and Kendall Fuller, who's actually gone, but they like to let things develop and let their guys down the field cover. But I think if you bring Yetur Gross-Matos in here, he gets to the quarterback pretty fast, and he helps Chris Jones, who just got signed a big fat contract, also get to the quarterback and stuff the run.
All right, so I think that the Seahawks are going to be taking Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State, the offensive tackle. I think he brings a great deal of athleticism, and his run game is pretty sufficient. And overall, the Seahawks do need help on their offensive line, so Wilson can actually do his job as quarterback and not have to worry about running all around.
Yeah, so here I think, at this point in the draft, we've got a lot of playoff teams. They don't have a lot of glaring needs. But I think the Ravens do have maybe not a glaring need, but they do have a need at linebacker. They never recovered from the loss of C.J. Mosley last year. They were not very good at that position. So I think they have their pick of the 2 best linebackers in the class. And I think they will go with Patrick Queen over Kenneth Murray. Patrick Queen, although a little smaller, he's quicker. He played for the more dominant program, obviously, being a national champion. He's very alert. He's good right off the snap. And although he might be a little more raw as a prospect because he only really played 1 year, or at least put up 1 year of great production, I think his potential is something you can't overlook. And I think the Ravens will eat it up and take him here.
So I have the Titans taking Ross Blacklock, defensive tackle out of TCU. He weighs like 290 pounds, is like 6'3", and he ran a sub-5 on the combine. So very, very quick. I believe he had like 7 sacks. Don't quote me on that, but 7 sacks last year. Very productive for TCU, especially with the Titans trading Jurrell Casey away to the Broncos. They definitely have a need for a defensive line help. And I think they get that in Ross Blacklock, who I think is going to make not necessarily an immediate impact for the Titans, but I definitely could see him later this year or next year be an absolute stud for that Titans defensive line.
Wide receiver is a huge need for the Green Bay Packers. We obviously all saw that last year. When Davante Adams was healthy, he was the only one that would get targeted. When he wasn't healthy, the Packers struggled. So there are a lot of receivers taken off the board. So I think they avoid that area. On the tackle side, they lost Brian Bulaga, and protecting Aaron Rodgers has always been a struggle in Green Bay. But I think you go linebacker based off a guy, one of the most underrated guys, in my opinion, on the Packers defense last year, Blake Martinez. He's gone. He went to the New York Giants. He averaged over 100 tackles every single year. He was always top 5. And when you lose a guy like that, your defense is going to struggle right away. So you bring in a guy like Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. Look at his stats, 102 tackles, total tackles last year. He fills in that Blake Martinez role. Comes in, starts to learn to be the leader of that defense, and makes an instant impact.
I think the 49ers here are going to be taking T. Higgins out of Clemson, the receiver. He's very tall, making him a good fit for this position. Devin, I think you actually know some more about him.
He's a really good option for 50-50 balls. The only worry with T. Higgins is that he's just kind of skinny, so there'd be concerns about like injuries and things like that. But I think he's going to be a great complement to Deebo Samuel, who's kind of more of a speedy, kind of more what's the word I'm looking for? More technical receiver. So I think that's going to be a great fit for the 49ers, and then that'll also help with the loss of Emmanuel Sanders as well.
Yeah, so the Dolphins traded back here. Ryan said earlier he thought they could take a running back here, which I think is also very likely. That being said, I think they'll go best player available since they've already had 2 first-round picks. And I think that they will take Xavier McKinney and run with it because Xavier McKinney is a fantastic talent out of Alabama, the safety. He could have gone much earlier than 32. He's very versatile. He's kind of like a Tyrann Mathieu a little bit, where he can play in different positions. He's a good blitzer, a good tackler. I think that he is a great fit here, especially at 32. Despite the rumblings that the Dolphins might take a running back, I think they would love to have Xavier McKinney at 32.
All right, so that concludes the 2020 NFL Draft. We are 100% sure that all our picks are correct.